Board of Selectmen's meeting to order, Monday, March 26, 2018. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was with some enthusiasm. Oh, he made it.
My 3 years as a selectman, that is the most spirited pledge we've ever had.
By far.
By far. First item of business on the agenda is a little of our organizational task here. We need to appoint a chairman and a vice chairman of this esteemed body. Is there any nominations for a chairman?
I nominate Skylar.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any nominations for a vice chairman?
I nominate Franco.
A second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's done. Thank you. Thank you, my colleagues, for their vote of confidence, assuming that's what it was. Next thing on the agenda is we're going to swear in Bryce again. This time we're actually going to do it.
So just like we talked about last time, Mr. Chairman, this is take two, but we have paperwork here this time. So Bryce, come on up. Bryce Lyman grew up here in Littleton. We're happy to have him on board. As I had indicated before, he served in the Coast Guard. He's gone to school for criminal justice. He interned at the Littleton Police Department. He's been very enthusiastic about getting on board with the PD, and his perseverance paid off. We recently hired him from, he had worked at the Grafton County House of Corrections prior to us taking him on, and so he brings a pretty good skill set and a great personality, and we're happy to have him on board.
Okay. What am I doing here, Andy?
Okay.
Read this, then this, then I have him do this, repeat after me. Okay, Bryce. Whereas there is a vacancy in the Littleton Police Department in said town, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of a full-time patrol officer, we do hereby appoint you, the said Bryce Lyman, as a member of the Littleton Police Department of said town, and upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment and the certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers to perform the duties and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. Given under our hands this Monday, March 26, 2018, Skylar Sweet Chairman, Franco Rossi Vice Chairman, Kara Gendro Select Person. I think you need to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Bryce Lyman,
I, Bryce Lyman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties
discharge and perform all the duties
incumbent on me as a full-time patrol officer
incumbent on me as a full-time patrol officer
of the Littleton Police Department,
of the Littleton Police Department,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the rules and regulations of the Constitution
agreeably to the rules and regulations of the Constitution
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Yeah, one goes to him, the other two go back to see it.
Bryce? It's yours, Pete.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well done, and congratulations. Next on the agenda is Sue Pilat is going to tell us a little bit about the dog park committee, and I believe we're going to accept some donation and basically get an update, if you would.
Yes, that's correct. I'm Sue Pilat, and I'm the chairman of, well, now co-chair of the Littleton Dog Park. We have our new Park and Rec director, Chris Wilkins, who's also going to be co-chair, which I'm very excited about. Just to update you a little bit, our dog park meetings have been going on. I think we've had about 5 meetings, and we're progressing very well. We've got a plan, we've got the acreage that we need. We have 10 very committed, dedicated members of the committee. We did a Facebook page a few weeks ago, and that brought us in some more interest and interested parties for a dog park. Destination Imagination team from Lakeway Elementary had to do a community-based need project for their competition, and they made the Littleton Dog Park part of their project for a need-based community project. And so I will let them take over. They have a letter to present. I do have the money, so we won't give that to you. We'll deposit it. And they did a wonderful job at competition. They're going on to state finals, which we're all excited about. They're an impressive group, and so I'd like to present the amazingly strong Space Otters.
Yeah. Where do you need to go?
And that's our Facebook page, if anybody wants to go on and like and share it. We'd love to have you and view it.
Yeah, there you go.
Upside down. It's upside down. This is your cake, come on, fix it.
It's the most fun Select has been last night.
Hey, let me get out of your way. Hey, dogs over there. Hold up, guys, you're not gonna
This is great.
These pinpricks, these where they belong. They go up top. What? That's fine. Yeah. We would like to introduce ourselves. I'm Sadie Roberts. I'm Nan Mir. I'm Cameron Whitcomb. I'm Taylor Martin. I'm Sheffield Tyler. I'm Elijah Whitcomb. I'm Aaron Sandy. I'm Cameron Porter. I'm Luke Hennessy.
And we're the amazingly strong Space Otters.
Thank you for inviting us. We are the amazingly strong Space Otters. We are a DI team from Littleton, New Hampshire. We chose the Inside Impact Challenge, servicing a community need. We chose to support an effort to bring an awareness of a need for a dog park. My team and I baked healthy dog treats made with oats, bananas, and peanut butter. We donated all the money that we raised to the dog park committee. Here is our story.
Act 1. Oh, let's unlock the cash. Let's get the keys. Click, 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 click. Oops, that's the wrong one. Where is the right key? I have it right here. Are you sure? Why, yes, I am. Click, 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 click.
I'm so bored with my dog. I wish there was a dog park.
Hey, remember when we made a project for DI? Maybe we could help with a dog park for our community. Look how cute our dogs are playing together.
Aww! Hey, look, there's a poster right over there about a need for a dog park. A dog park can keep your dog active. Support our four-legged friends.
Last week I saw an article in the newspaper about a group of adults trying to make this happen.
Do you think our community would like a dog park? How about we create and hand out surveys to get people's opinions?
Act 2. It was fun handing out the surveys.
Yeah.
Everybody in my class said they wanted a dog park.
Yeah, me too. 2 people in my class said they didn't want a dog park.
Hello, DI team. Are you all ready for the big project?
Yeah!
My job collecting all the data as well as creating this infographic. Was our data qualitative or quantitative? Porter.
Our data was quantitative because it shows an amount.
How do we read the data? Sheffield.
The small bones equal 1 person, the big bones equal 10 people.
Who would like to read the first question and the results? Cameron. Nam.
Do you own a dog? The results were 149 people said yes, they own a dog, and 64 people said no, they do not own a dog.
And the second question? Sadie.
Do you live in an apartment or a house? 41 people live in an apartment and 154 people live in a house.
Very good. And our last question, Taylor.
Would you like a dog park in our community? The results were 174 people said yes, and 32 people said no.
How do we support this cause? Ari.
We can make healthy dog biscuits to raise money to support a need for a dog park.
We raised $590 selling homemade treats for a dog park in our community in Littleton, New Hampshire. Woo! Team choice element number 1.
We created and handed out surveys as goals to get people's opinions. Here are our surveys right here. We rolled around some of the data. Do you want to fill out our surveys?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We used tallies to count all the data. We each typed out a dog design for our surveys. We had typing them out.
Team choice
Element number 2.
We baked healthy and delicious dog biscuits in our school cafeteria to raise money to support the efforts of building and creating a dog park. We made the dog biscuits in our school cafeteria.
This is one of our customers' dogs. She loved the treats.
It was really fun making all the dog biscuits.
Time. Click, click,
I saw you before.
Put him on the Cultural Commission.
While they're packing up, I just want to also let everyone know that we have a dog park committee meeting that meets the second Monday of every month at the Opera House in Town Room at 6 p.m. And we invite the public to come, give comments, share their ideas, and also look at our Facebook page. We're posting information on there, so you can go on and look at that and see what we're doing. Thank you.
On behalf of the town and particularly the Board of Selectmen, thank you. It's one of the best presentations we've ever had.
And I will come back and eventually do a formal presentation on where we are on the dog park.
We should probably, as a board, vote to accept the donation. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Do we do that on the board action, or just do it now?
We'll do a board action now.
Oh, okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great job.
Okay, I'm going to continue with the agenda. Unfortunately, we have an item that's not on the agenda. Over the weekend, Littleton lost a friend of the community, a local businessman, a man who, through his business and through his personal life, gave a lot to this community. I'd like a moment of silence for Ronnie Lister. Thank you. Ronnie will be missed. Next thing on the agenda is we have a little late, but never too late, presentation by Brian Ward, who's going to do a little update on the economic development situation here in town. Brian?
Nothing like a Brian Ward presentation to clean up the room.
Well, you got a tough act to follow, Brian.
You could have ended up candy or something.
Years ago, just following up on how wonderful the kids were, a family member of mine came home and was disturbed that the head of facilities in the Littleton school system was talking about how the kids coming out of Lakeway every year were getting worse. And I think we can show that that's not true. Just to let you know, it was 1966 when the person told my father that the kids were getting worse. So 52 years later, I don't think that's true. Chad Stearns asked me to talk about 25 years of economic development activity in Littleton and hold it for 10 or 15 minutes at the 25th celebration of our economic development celebration. The selectmen were having lots of fun. They were meeting with town council to go over the threatened litigation on the land transfer, and Andrew couldn't be there and the selectmen couldn't be there. So Andrew asked me afterwards at some appropriate time to come back and make a presentation to the selectmen, because these successes, and I'll talk about them, a lot of it started right from the positions of the direction of the town that selectmen, your predecessors, made, and in the 25 years have continued to make to help the town move forward. So obviously this was just before Thanksgiving, the holidays came, everyone was tied up with working our way up to town meeting. So this is the appropriate time to finally do it on that. Going to pass out the same thing that was passed out. I think poor Carrie has to hear it again because she was at the meeting, but I'll try to
It's good news.
address it from her new perspective as our newest selectman. In 1992, Littleton prospects were not as good as they are today, and we needed to take ownership for our economic future. And a group of citizens, you'll know many of them, went to the Board of Selectmen in June of '92 and requested that the selectmen support an initiative to address our economic needs. We had an industrial park that wasn't finished. We had 17 vacancies on Main Street, and we had almost a general consensus that our best days were behind us. The individuals who attended that meeting were Jerry Eames, Bob Copenhaver, Joel Bador, Frank Pafito, Ed Hennessy, Kim Bond, and myself. And so we went and we asked the selectmen to sponsor the creation, and we told the selectmen we have little or no idea what the heck we're going to do, but we needed to do something. So the selectmen created the Economic Development Task Force, and over 70 people in the community over a couple of years worked to develop some economic development goals. And those goals were vetted and worked and chit-chatted, and so it took a period of time. It says 1992. That's when it started. That's not really when the goals were reached. And I want you to also think about one very important economic development initiative that occurred locally in the last 25 years, but was never part of our goals, and that was the contribution that healthcare has made to our community. And you'll see later in the presentation, we miss it completely. Other people in the community did provide leadership. So as happens with Littleton, when we're at our best, we have a choir. We're not a good community for solo acts. And that we also have been fortunate to have a lot of talented people who have contributed to the communities through the years. And you as selectmen, in your role as selectmen, have some very important roles, and we all felt that if we couldn't get the selectmen to endorse it and support it, that 7 individuals were going to go nowhere in a hurry. We needed the endorsement of the selectmen. Your job as selectmen is to set the direction for the town in many different names. You also have to make, ratify, and support decisions in your role. How many decisions have you made, Franco, in the last year?
Oh, no, I just do what everybody tells me.
You also set our priorities, because there's always something that competes with some other good idea, and you have to set the priorities. And then you have to go before the voters and seek their support. I think, in my opinion, the voters gave you guys an A- for 2018 with the votes that came through the meeting. There have been other years when the grade has been lower. You guys did a good job, and this kind of shows the results. One of the things we were facing in '92 was that we had to energize our community economic confidence. I remember Frank Fido saying that before we could convince somebody else outside of the community that they should invest here, we kind of really had to convince ourselves. We had to overcome it. And the good news was that once we sat down and looked at the pluses and minuses, we had a lot going for ourselves, and so our crying in a beer was a rather short period. We had an industrial park, wasn't completed, but it was well on its way. We had a vibrant Main Street, intact. As Dick Hamilton said, we were the last Main Street that was in northern New Hampshire that was intact. It needed to be dressed up a little bit, polished up a little bit, but it was a good thing. We had access to the interstate. We had a lot of good things going for us, so let's roll up our sleeve and get to work. And the economic confidence in a short period of time. The very first 2 things, and it's sad but true, the very first 2 positive things that happened in '92, one of them was Ronnie Lister and his partner, Abel Toll, bought Thompson Chevrolet, and they had a lot of faith in Littleton in 1992. That was their first dealership. I think they have over 10 now. And Ronnie's commitment to Littleton was in '92. If you go across the street and you look at the Veterans Memorial, you'll see under the Army student group of World War I, Ronnie's grandfather and his uncle were in high school during World War I, and they were engaged. His family lived in Littleton before they moved out to their farm in Bethlehem. That was one of the first things that we had. We had nothing to do with that as a group, but it was a plus. The second one is every time you look at the topic of the town and you look at the restaurant, the old White Mountain restaurant was on the left, and on the right, Danny Fike in '92 had enough confidence to double the size of his restaurant. And that was a good thing to happen. That was had a nice picture, and it was good to have some positive news. The next thing that we came up with, which we established as our #1 goal, was to complete the Industrial Park Bridge and Access Road. It took 10 years for that bridge and access road to be built, from Meadow Street to Mount Eustis. It took a lot of time for a lot of different reasons. We had to move a dump, part of the dump. We had a lot of things to be done, but we realized that if we didn't complete that part, everything else we want to get done wasn't going to happen. That we had to stand and deliver, eventually did. We had to revitalize and reinvent our Main Street. Our Main Street, starting in around 1960, had gone into decline. The First National moved off of Main Street. Aubuchon's came down to where Harbor Freight is, and they put 3 businesses, hardware stores, out of business in Main Street. So a lot of people said, geez, when Walmart came, they really devastated Main Street. Now, it happened a long time before. And so we needed to revitalize, reinvent, and come up with a reason why Main Street should exist and be there, which we did. We also felt that we needed to create a reason for someone to use the interstate and to come to Littleton, and so we sought to recruit a box store. We originally thought we were going to get a Kmart, but they went into bankruptcy. Walmart was going to go to St. Johnsbury, and then the people in St. Johnsbury decided they didn't want it, and so they came to Littleton. It's been 20 years since Walmart's been here. I think they opened October of 1998. So we took some stops and starts, took us 6 years to do it, but eventually we got there. Stabilize and recruit banking resources. In 1992, Littleton had 3 banks. Across the street where Bank of New Hampshire was, that was Fleet. They had announced they wanted to leave the North Country, and they did. Where Union Bank is now, that was Dartmouth Bank. That failed. Was eventually put together and then sold, and had 10 different. The best franchise you could have ever had was to make signs for that building, because there's probably been 10 or 12 through the years. And Union now has stabilized it. And then the third bank was People's Bank, and they were on the watch list. And they eventually sold out to Connecticut River, and I'll show you where we come to that. We also had to monetize the I-93 access. That came in the late 50s, but we never quite figured out how to use it. And you know, Conway has been struggling to get a bypass for 25 years. We had a bypass before we had a need for a bypass. So we had to how can we use I-93 to get people here? We also had to expand the stagnant tax base, and I'll show you the results. And then the thing is, we had to diversify our economy and rebuild infrastructure in the community. We have the most diversified economy in the North Country, between the industrial park, the big boxes, which are located on the other side of the interstate, which is the appropriate location, a vibrant Main Street, healthcare, which is our largest employer. Like I said, we take all the credit for missing it. We never did it. So we need to do that. Also, we looked upon ourselves that our culture was that we were the small business capital of New Hampshire, and to create a positive environment. Now, I'm not sure other people agreed that we were the small business capital, but that's what we wanted to do. Andrew, if you could go to the next page. As this was the 25th celebration, the most important thing that we ever did was to build the industrial park. That is our economic base. We had been a shoe shop town, had over 800 jobs when it was booming. It was a boom and bust cycle for years. We used to duke it out with Berlin to have the highest unemployment in the state, because they made women's shoes for winter, and when the demand for winter shoes was, there were layoffs. So the industrial park, I don't know if anyone has seen on TV, but there's an ad for Gillette that talks about they're the 1,200 people of Gillette. Well, our industrial park is our Gillette, because that's where the 1,200 people work. They have Gillette, we've got 17 businesses. They present 1.6 million in annual revenue. Hopefully it'll be knocking on 2 million by 2020. And one of the important things, that of the 17 businesses located in the park or adjacent to it, 13 area businesses expanded to the park. We didn't build, ultimately, we didn't build the park for somebody else. We built it for our existing business to be able to expand it. Now, Franco, when he doubles his size, we're hoping he will build his next building in the
6 months.
This month? Okay, good. It is the economic engine of Littleton, and it's been a partnership between the town, boards of selectmen, town managers. You know, moving the park took Larry Jackson and Fred Whitcomb, who was the late Fred Whitcomb was our fire chief, and he became the safety officer that supervised the moving of the dump. So town employees really stepped up, and then obviously LIDC, which has been here since '73, and 9 separate times the taxpayers of Littleton have supported a $4 million partnership. The $4 million that was spent was $1 million from the town, $2.6 million was raised by LIDC in partnership with the Board of Selectmen in the town through grants, and then $400,000 that LIDC raised and reinvested into it. So it's a $4 million investment. The next item is our Main Street. It is today still fragile but vibrant. It's our tourism catchment area. We're never going to get a grand hotel, a golf course, a country club, or anything. It's our tourism catchment area, and it's what sets us apart from other communities. And what it is we're now at this point, under John Hennessy's leadership and many others, we're now combining Main Street, the River District, and the Annanushik River into one destination and attraction. And there's a synergy going on, and anyone trying to get a parking space locally knows of that synergy. So these are some of the business things that have occurred. Chutters, I call that Shillings is the Chutters of the millennials. And obviously every kid doesn't come to Littleton and not go to Chutters. The bookstore, we have wonderful historic building, we're in one. The town building, the Jack Junior Cinemas. I remember a woman, Laura Canoy, who was on NPR radio, and she couldn't believe that our Jack Junior Theater, because she lived in Concord, she said, we don't have that. You know? Anyways, there's been a lot of good things down in this particular area, and there'll be a lot more. Let's go to the next one. Again, Walmart came to Littleton in 1998. The first new big box was Rite Aid. They took 4 properties on Meadow Street, and that was built in '96. And then Walmart came and opened in '98. Littleton has become what I call the Hudson River trading post of the North Country. We have over 30 brands, from Applebee's to Walgreens, and I'm not going to name them all, that are now part of our retail community that were not there in 1992. And they're probably, by the end of this year or next year, there could be another 5 to 10. We've got companies under construction. There is New Maple Fields, and there's other things that are happening. But just to let you know, none of these were here in 1992. We talked about how bad the capital access was for a small business. Currently, there's over $4 billion in bank assets that are from the banks that serve Littleton. Bank of New Hampshire, National Savings Bank, Northern Lights Credit Union, Sunset Savings Bank, Union Bank, and Woodsville. None of those banks were here in Littleton in 1992. One of the things is we had to recruit, and at one time we had, I don't know, 3 or 4 other banks, I can't remember them all, who were here and have since either merged or left. But we've gone from not having access to credit to having $4 billion and have reinvented our whole banking climate. I-93 access, that created an environment and rationale for tourists, North Country and Northeast Kingdom citizens to travel to Littleton for retail, professional, financial, and healthcare services. The state of New Hampshire spent $43 million from Franconia Knox to the Vermont town line for an I-93 upgrade in 2015. Last year we had a dedication to Ray Burton for the rest area out off the interstate, and I joked that if Ray was here, he would thank DOT for spending $43 million to provide access to the rest area that was named after him. So, anyway, so that is a substantial investment. It's also the largest investment in northern New Hampshire for transportation. Talking about tax base, in '95 our tax base was $241 million. By 2009 it grew to $794 million. If we could have just stopped there, but it now, as of April 1st, 2017, was $718 million. We lost 10% of our tax base, so it hasn't all been good stuff. We've had to absorb, and the selectmen have had to deal with it more than anyone else. And I want to congratulate the selectmen on being aggressive to do the reevaluation. About 10 years ago, there was a working group led by Steve Kelly as Budget Committee Chair, myself, Eddie Moore, Bob May from Planning Board, and 1 or 2 others, and we looked to urge the town to do what you guys had done. And the reason was that the big boxes had come in and were built, and then many of them were sold, and there was empirical evidence through the registry that these properties were being sold for a lot more than what were on the books. And so while we didn't get everything, and there were reasons why we didn't complete that project, we did get the assessor to go back and look at that. And I believe we picked up $16 million by re-looking at those particular properties that serve us through the big boxes of this side of the interstate. So it has some. We've also had to diversify our economy and infrastructure investment. The reason I want to talk about healthcare is that is the most amount of money that has been expended in our community for capital facilities is $65 million in the hospital, plus its addition, Amanuset Community Health, River Glen, and the VA Clinic. That is the largest. We also learned that economic development cannot occur without two other things, community development and education development. And the community, through about $20 million into the schools and then the Learning Center, there's about $24 million that have gone into our facilities. The biggest challenge we have right now as a community is coming up. What are we going to do with Lakewood? It was built in 1950. It's 68 years old. Traditionally, the lifespan of an elementary school is 50 years. It was built in a whole different era before special ed. It was built, there's been 5 different editions. At some point, we're going to have to come up with a solution to it, and I don't have that solution, so I'm not going to give it to you today. So we're going to have to do it together as a community. $15 million in private sector investments in Main Street and the River District, including the Shillings. $13 million in bridges, streets, roads, and sidewalks. $10 million for the Littleton Revitalization Project, which was Amanuset Green, the Riverwalk Phase 1 and 2 in Littleton Main Street, and then the $8.5 million River District, which the town has provided phenomenal leadership on, bringing talented people like John Hennessy in, Jimmy McMahon, others to do that. So that's one that's ongoing. The rest of these have all happened, and those are some of it. And there's a lot more, but we only have so much time. So is there another one?
Yep.
Also, the $6.8 million, and you see the food co-ops, hard to believe it, between the 2 additions and land acquisition, that's how much they have invested. Through the years, the Water and Light Department has invested $6.5 million in infrastructure investments. There's been over $6 million in investments into the Armory, Post Office, and Social Security buildings. Mount Eustace Commons, which was our old hospital, for 5.4 between acquisition and renovations to turn what was a darkened building when we got off the interstate into a vibrant, which has, I believe, over 20 tenants at the moment. This was one place where we really dodged a bullet. We had a state-of-the-art 1966 cable system prior to Adelphia spending $5 million. Now what's interesting about that was the Riggi family controlled Adelphia, and they were out of Buffalo, New York. They eventually were indicted and went to jail, but the last project they did was Littleton. And $5 million went into that system. And that gave us at least some broadband access at that time, which we didn't have any. I think our biggest broadband might have been 3 squirrels in a can or something. It was terrible. We also, North Country Council and LIDC worked together to create enhanced broadband capacity, and they spent $4.8 million. That was a regional project, but Littleton benefited from it. $4 million went into Industrial Park. I've already said that. Now, you saw before where I made reference to the small business capacity of our community. And one of the things that have helped our community sustain it is the continuity of families who have year after year after year have stood up and reinvested in their community and did it. The Corey Simon family, Louis Bob Corey, the Brighton Street Bridge was dedicated in his memory. 4 generations of Coreys in the Simon family have been leaders in the Althorpe. The Eames family, they came to town in the 20s. They've had 3 generations. Mentioned the Fike family. Hadlock family, they're on their 4th generation. Bruce's dad, Bernard, started Little League in Littleton in around 1950. Both Bruce and both of his boys have been Little League coaches, so they've been hanging around forever. And you know, the Hennessy family, Eddie Hennessy got out of college, graduated in Littleton in '62, went off to UNH, served in Vietnam, and came home, became an accountant, and has been involved in just about anything. And I think and joke that both he and Bob Copenhaver were involved in economic development before dirt was invented. They've been around forever and done a wonderful job. The Hawley Eastman family. Rudolph Hawley was the last superintendent of the Sears and Roebuck shoe factory. Anybody know where that was? That's what we call Hitchner. That was built in 1910 for a Sears and Roebuck factory. Rudolph Hawley ran it, and then in around 1925, Sears and Roebuck said, what the hell are we doing in the shoe manufacturing business? They got out of it, and it's had 2 or 3 different tenants, and then obviously Greg Eastman has continued, and so there have been 4 generations of Hawley Eastmans that have participated. The LaHoot family, again, Herbert LaHoot came to Littleton in 1920, and there are now 4 generations of LaHoots working in the business through the years, and they have 7 different stores, 3 in Littleton, and the Fido family, again, came in the 20s, 4th generation working there. Frank just finished up a nice project on Cottage Street, taking the old Rockies video and making some nice quality apartments. Val Polson's family, they came in the late 40s, 3 generations, Strain and Ferguson. Scotty Ferguson's wife's uncle was Rock Strain, who lived to be 98 years old. And he was the epitome of optimism. He bought a new truck when he was 92. So the Strain development is one of the wonderful neighborhoods that we have, and that was Rock, and eventually Scotty came into it. But his father was an entrepreneur, and his father before. So there's literally been 4 or 5 generations of Strain Fergusons. The Sumner family, Maynard Sumner sent his wife to find a town in northern New Hampshire or northern Vermont to create what became the Littleton Coin Company. She got off the train, saw the post office, and said, I found Nirvana. I didn't say that. She said, I found the home, and they came here, and you know what happened. The Tran family, 4 generations also. Arthur Tran, who started Tran Construction. He, because of the Depression, dropped out of school at 6th or 7th grade and went on to have a very successful construction business. And then the Wynn family, and we have a member of the Wynn family who is a selectman. And they came in the early 60s. Does anybody remember where Gerald had his first business?
It was a garage, wasn't it?
Yeah. Right where Jiffy Mart was. That was Wynn's Flying A. And the Wynn family have been involved in many, many different business and activities. So the bottom line is that we've had continuity of families that have made a tremendous difference in the sustainability of our community and our business environment. And it's important to remember that what we have here didn't happen by accident. But it's important for the selectmen, and I know you realize, that selectmen's fingerprints are just about on every single one of these things, of either pulling talented people together or putting bonds before voters or doing everything. And whatever success we've had is because the credibility of the selectmen have been available for people to go ahead and move on behalf of the town. So, any question? I know, just through the
I'd like to
25 years.
see the Ward family up there too, Brian.
Well, we haven't been around long enough. We got another 25 years that we could possibly go on. Anyways, I wanted to present that to you guys, and hopefully I know that as you do your tenure, there'll be more of these that will be part of your period of time here and build off what others have done and others will do in the future.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
Where's that bridge?
That's the net bridge.
Is it to Brooklyn or Manhattan?
I think that's, I couldn't say this.
They're right next to each other. I don't know which it is. Okay, before I forget, I almost did, we need to welcome our newest select person, Carrie Gendro, who's, if you haven't figured it out by now, whose maiden name is Wynn. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you.
And I
Good
think
luck.
if the Board of Selectmen got an A- last year, it will turn into an A+ this year.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the town manager's report. Andrew?
So I just had a few items I was going to update you on. One, I'll let Joe get this out of the way. We're just going to do a quick update on, let me get off this one. do a quick update on the Meadow Street sewer spill. We had one on Shaw's, which many people are aware of, and then we had another one recently. And I'll let Joe just talk about that briefly.
So we had the Shaw's spill was February 9th. We know about that. We're moving away from that one pretty good speed now. Shaw's was cleaned up, properly repaired. It's been tested by local contractors on Stone Cipher over here on Saranac Street. We had some local help with that. Jeff Wynn with Dirt Works loaded some of the contaminated snow in with into line dumpsters from Costello's. There was environmental oversight, but there was some local assistance there, which we appreciate. Jeff Wynn and his guys and Stone Cipher coming over on short notice as well, on short notice to help us out with that. It's been inspected by DES. The repair has been inspected by DES and myself. The repair was supervised. It's been inspected now that it's over with. There was some modifications. There's an alarm system now that will be heard from the store instead of just visible from Route 302 or Meadow Street. So we think we're getting better as we get away from that one. But right after that, a few weeks later, the 99 had a problem, had an overflow. St. Patrick's Day weekend of all weekends to have, and there was obviously some hurdles with that, you know, the holiday and that restaurant holiday, and that the associated economic impact of having a store be closed. But we have to maintain our integrity and do what's right for the environment for the town of Littleton, and so they had to close Friday night for a little while. And sorry, just give me a catch up here. I left my crew home. I went down there to take the call Friday night with Littleton Police. They came and helped us out with traffic, and Littleton Fire Department. I left my guys home because they've been plowing all week. We've gotten a new guy now through our warrant article, but you know, it just speaks to some of the issues we have. The guys are out plowing all week, and then Friday night there's a sewer call that's going to involve all hands on deck type response. PD and the fire department helped me out with that. I was able to keep the guys home to early Saturday morning with no impact to the environment because I shut them off and minimize the overflow. Stabilize the area, keep the people away from the overflow and minimize the health risk. And then the 99 called a 24-hour contract that they have. Hardigan from Vermont. Hardigan showed up Saturday morning, cleaned this up. Milt Brass was looped in Friday night late. I'm sure he appreciated the call late Friday night, but he was looped in. He oversaw the cleanup Saturday morning, and we were able to get it cleaned up and get them back open so they didn't miss their St. Patrick's Day holiday. And we could give DES a straight face answer as to how we did it properly. Schofield the whole time was in the on-deck circle. Hardigan came in from Vermont. That's the contract that the 99 uses. We use Hardigan as well locally. They're good, but we had a local guy ready to help us out as well. So it was good to move away from that, and it was positive from the 99. They were receptive to our demands. They understood that we had to stop this flow. We had to minimize everything. It didn't get nearly to the stages of the other overflows because it was caught quickly. Didn't go into a river. We didn't have to notify anybody downstream, and it was a much better ending. Some people say, "Oh, how are we getting this? How are we getting to this point with it? You know, one and then another one." I inspected the 99 in the last year myself, in their kitchen, in their sewer infrastructure outside the parking lot. Okay, so maybe no faith in me. I brought a plumbing inspector in from Concord. He inspected the whole thing. Some of these things are just inevitable things that happen when you have, you know, a busy town, vibrant business community. These are things that we have to be try to get in front of, but they are inevitable to some extent, and we're trying to stay ahead of them as best we can. Shaw's have been inspected in the last year on two different occasions. The same team, myself, and then Earl Middlemas from the state of New Hampshire came in there as well. So we are trying to stay ahead of this, and I do feel we're making some good progress. Some of these things that are unfortunate. That's kind of how that happened on St. Patrick's Day, and again, the 99 was happy to get back open and not miss their holiday. And Neil DeGrasse got his last, was that his last weekend, I think, working with the town? Maybe it was that's,
Well, he's still help out.
Yeah, he's still helping.
So that's going to be,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
So you can call him late anytime.
And we do. And so it was like I said, again, good teamwork with the PD, fire department, and
Maybe I should put his phone
Mill
number there.
helped me out.
I should put his phone number so everybody can call him.
Yeah.
So again, we're trying to move away from these things and trying to help the businesses get to a point where these don't happen and be proactive and we have to react. When we have to react, we have to react. Try to be proactive during the day when things are a little slow to encourage compliance and it's coming along.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Does that sewage have to be pumped down there?
The sewage has to be pumped, I'm sorry,
Where you were talking about?
at the 99.
Does that have to be pumped at all, or is that,
The 99 is a gravity-fed sewer system to our main.
okay.
And then our main-
That was my
Yeah,
question.
then our main is eventually pumped back to the treatment plant, because we're all downstream of the treatment plant.
That's what I meant. So
Yeah.
it goes into something that has to be pumped
That's
back up.
exactly.
It seemed so in my mind
Yeah,
that it
it
would
goes
have to
down.
go uphill.
Down and it comes back up, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so all of that Meadow Street sewage has to be eventually pumped back uphill.
Everything goes down all the way through the pump chamber across by Irving, across from Home Depot, and then from there it's pumped back up
Back up.
to the.
That was my question. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks. You got more
Do you
in?
also, do you also inspect the?
We can have public input a little bit later, Rudy, in the agenda.
Yeah, just gonna give a quick update just so people kind of know what's going on for projects this year. We have, as we've talked about several times, we have about $5 million of infrastructure projects underway. And there's a lot of coordination happening right now between New Hampshire DOT, Water and Light. We have 3 engineering firms, many residents and businesses, and quite a few of the grant funders, CWSRF, TAP, CDBG, CDFA, all these different organizations. And we do have a meeting tomorrow night. It's a local concerns meeting. It's going to be at the Senior Center at 6:30, and it's for the TAP project. This is our first step in the TAP project, is to hear what abutters have to say about the grants. Also, I just have a brief update on the rail trail. We had a meeting this morning at the New Hampshire Department of Transportation with Commissioner Sheehan and people from the Bureau of Trails and Bureau of Rails and the Division of Historic Resources, and we're just going over some of the project there. And this just shows you where the rail is. And I had mentioned it to the board, but the public seems to have questions quite a bit, wondering why the project's taking 6 years. This is a from last year. Chad Stearns is the point person for the rail trail project, and he put together this projected timeline, and this has to be redone now. We were expecting to be under construction really beginning in April, but after our conversations today, it looks like we're probably pushing August, I believe. Is it maybe July or August? We're having just some coordination issues with a contractor from that the DOT in town everyone's using from years ago. But we're all working to resolve it. This will be pushed back, and we should hopefully see some results in the meantime. Another aspect of the rail trail project is a lot that's currently owned by the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, and this one was brought to my attention by a number of people in the community. What we did was we requested that the property be put on a surplus land list that was denied last year, and so we're just kind of exploring if there's another way to reconsider that right now. So for major projects, that's what I have. We've got the Saranac and Amanuset Street project are underway. That's actually been put out to bid now. Sub 5 sewer project is almost out to bid. I think we're at between 80 and 90% for final engineering phase. Also of update is the transfer station baler. That's something that was approved at last year's town meeting. That's finally come in and been installed as of last week. We're also working on a permit modification thought we'd be done by now, but there's been some staff changes at North Country Council. They're the ones who we've contracted to help us with that. This permit change will allow residents from other towns to utilize our transfer station. And right now, our permit only allows for Littleton residents. So this would...
Why do we want others to be able to?
Well, they may or may not already do that, but it's additional revenue for the town. We have a fee structure there that helps alleviate taxpayers from any additional activity. So there's other discussions from other communities.
There's not a, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
is there an additional fee structure if they're not from Littleton?
No.
No,
No.
but, so
Yeah,
the fee
but
structure,
we have the fees.
Yeah,
set.
okay.
Yeah, so,
and that's,
so, yeah.
the fees outweigh the costs?
I'd have to show you a breakdown of all that. I think
guess
it
I'd like
was
to-
2016, was it? I think that the select board took a look at the fees that we had and saw that we needed to make an adjustment, and that was done. There was a little bit of a headache involved in 2016, but it's worked out well.
I just
It becomes
asked.
a bit of a moving target because some of the stuff we sell, what we get for it
Yeah.
varies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the reason I asked the question, obviously, is because the fact that people from outside Littleton bringing in doesn't help us if our fees aren't high enough to offset the
Right.
cost of taking it in.
Right.
So
Yep.
let's,
And the transfer station's been really proactive. Brian Patno, the manager, he's worked out relationships with different industrial partners in the industrial park to help them lower their costs for getting rid of some product, but then also it helps to generate revenue for us. So, also of note is this week Schillings was issued its industrial discharge permit, and I think that we're going to see them brewing within the next few weeks. So that's an exciting step. We have a green up day coming up. We'll have more. Brian Patno will be here at a meeting in April to give you an update on that. Last year we did an event. He'll be here for that day. And also expect to hear a public meeting from New Hampshire Department of Transportation. They're going to do a traffic light study for both the Lowe's and the Home Depot lights to see if they're warranted and gather public input. So that's what I have for now.
Good. Thank you, Andrew.
can I ask one question on the report you gave us? From the Energy Conservation Commission?
Mm-hmm.
It has totals of the costs by year broken down,
Mm-hmm.
which is great, but it doesn't really tell us anything because prices fluctuate. Is there any way to get that same thing only in usage as opposed to dollars?
I'll check with them. Knowing the members, I would say they likely have that data.
I'd like to see that, to see if our energy conservation efforts are paying off in usage.
Yeah, get you some BTUs or gallons. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Good, so we go to old business. We have nothing here. I will mention for the audience, both the audience that's present and the television audience, that the door is still open to volunteer for boards and committees. And what's the date on that, Seal?
The end of this month.
The end of this month. So if you're interested in serving on a board or committee that the selectmen appoint, please contact the town office. We encourage as many as possible, and then we look at all the applicants, both existing members to renew for those that want to, and new members, and try to pick the best. That's the way the process works, but it won't work unless you volunteer. So please do. That'll take us into new business. There's a note on a change of meeting dates. We've moved everything up a week for the month of April, so our selectmen's meetings will be the 16th and 30th. That's to take care of some vacations and some other items. You had something you want to present in new business?
I think Sue and Andrew and I would like to report on the meeting that we went to in Plymouth.
Please do.
Okay. You want to start us off?
Yeah. So, Frumi Selchin of the New Hampshire, Northern New Hampshire Arts Alliance coordinated a meeting in Plymouth for Friday that was focusing on the New Hampshire creative economy and how establishing and supporting an arts community contributes to the economy. And there was a lot of questions. I think that it became apparent that Littleton, I think, is maybe a little ahead of the curve. There is some work that we need to do. I think a lot of it is maybe educating some of the businesses about how much arts actually is already supporting them. But then also with the select board's creation of the Cultural Arts Commission, I feel like the town's kind of it's got a foot ahead on it. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about what you heard.
Yeah, we, excuse me, we had an opportunity to listen to, he calls himself the president of the Concord Chamber of Commerce, but I think he's the executive director, it'd be that capacity, but he gave us an update on their revitalization. It's just amazing. But one of the things that really struck me was they contact the artist and they have art in different areas of their city, so they're not really paying for it, it's on loan. But I thought that would be an awesome idea for us here in Littleton. And then I was sharing with Andrew too, going to the transfer station on Saturday, I noticed, of course, the fence. As you're driving out, you see the fence, but what a great opportunity for artists to maybe do some art placement there with paintings or something. The other thing that really struck me was that most of the time artists are expected to do their artwork for free, but there are grants and things available that we could apply for so that we wouldn't have to expect them to do it for free, but we could pay them to do it. But what a difference it makes when the arts are infused into our community. So it's very, very encouraging.
Very informative, yeah. I talked a little bit about the Littleton Opera House. I made friends with a lady who said she likes to give money, so I made sure I made friends with her. There were great comments about Littleton. They said Littleton is cool, they like to come here. You know, I think that just the information that I gathered about that I could use at the Opera House, because the walls are bleak and they need to have some excitement to the Opera House. So the ideas that I got was maybe having students from LHS come down and do some artwork on our walls. I talked to the superintendent and he's all for it. So there were some great ideas that were shared, and I think that I learned quite a bit.
And one thing that was pretty amazing was the arts impact on the economy was over $1 billion in New Hampshire, which is pretty amazing. We did a quick study on an average event at the Opera House, and we found that every event that has 200, well, the estimate was 200 participants, and it contributed, I want to say, it was thousands and thousands of dollars to the local economy. And a lot of businesses, I don't know if they do or they don't realize how much, when an event is held, how many people are supporting the local businesses, Main Street, even Meadow Street, staying in hotels, or you know, getting into the restaurants. But the Opera House itself is generating a lot more money than just the revenue that we bring in for ticket sales. So.
Absolutely. I think that you know, I gave a presentation to the Rotary about the Opera House and what we're doing and what our future is, and you know, they were impressed with what we're doing. I think we've sent out letters for private contributions to help us with things at the Opera House, and that's gathered a lot of interest. And so I think the Opera House is definitely moving forward. So, it's good.
Thank you.
You mentioned that there's grants available for art for artists. Who takes the lead on that? The artists or the community?
I think we would.
Yeah, I think we would collaborate with them on it.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Is someone tasked with that, or do we? Someone in that role already, or is that one more thing we're just going to pile on you?
Well, the good thing is that you guys in your foresight have created this Cultural Arts Commission.
We created the commission.
We just have to have a meeting.
Well, the next select board meeting, I think you'll be appointing the members to that. So that's.
Yeah, I've got to get my letter.
we created the commission with your urging.
Yeah. That way I don't end up with,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Now we're into the public comment section. Rudy, I think you had something you wanted to address?
Yeah, I just want to ask, I want to, continue the conversation that I just started about the cleanup on 99 and stuff. Do you inspect Applebee McDonald too? Do you inspect Applebee and McDonald with everything it goes?
Yes, McDonald's was the first place I inspected when I took this job 2 years ago. Not for any reason in particular other than logistics. There was a problem with grease on the meadow, and I went to the first house on the first store on the right was McDonald's, and I worked my way down, and including Applebee's, yes, and the plumbing inspector from the state of New Hampshire accompanied me to both places as well, and we found both to be very compliant.
They are not at fault or stuff like that.
No.
No. That's the reason why, the $1.2 million lawsuit, right?
I'm not sure about anything like that. I just know that you asked me if I inspected
Okay.
McDonald's or
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Anyone else have any public comment? Ralph, you were first.
The change in your meeting nights, is that just for April?
Yes.
Okay, then you're gonna go back to regular meetings?
Yes.
Okay, because the first night in April conflicts with the school board meetings on the same night. And there's a few of us that attend all of the different meetings, so as long as it's just short term. Thank you.
I've got somebody else. Rudy, hang on. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Richard Woolsey, and I have a couple of concerns. One is it would be good for the folks that want to cross the street into the co-op from the old hospital complex to have a crosswalk. The co-op has made a sidewalk that comes right down to the street and invites people to cross the street there. It's a really busy street. People are anxious to get going 70, or they have just finished going 70. So you gotta let them know that they're in about a 25 area, and if people are crossing the street from the old age apartments, and many other people that work in the VA and so forth, go to lunch there, buy stuff. There's a lot of people that walk across the street there. I don't live there, but I noticed it. They really need a crosswalk with signs and a full regalia, The second concern.
Well, let me address the first concern.
I was just going to leave that with you.
Well, you deserve an answer, and there's a process for doing that, which the town manager and the chief of police will address.
Okay.
And perhaps tomorrow night, if you're available, about 6:30, you could come by the senior center. We're doing our public input session. Well, it's called the local concerns meeting for our transportation alternative program. We received an $800,000 grant to redo pedestrian infrastructure. On that list is that very area on Cottage Street.
See, I'm a kind of a guy who would take a 5-gallon bucket of yellow traffic paint in my brush, and I'd go out there, and if by about 2 days from now it would be done.
We'll talk later.
That's the way I do stuff. It's like I don't schedule it for like next year after a couple of
For
people.
Kramer on Seinfeld.
The
Remember
other
that episode
next
when he painted his
concern
road?
is that there's 4 intersections around the high school complex. I think 3 of them have 2-way stop signs, and the other one has a 4-way stop sign. I think it would be good to standardize all 4 of those heavy use intersections with 2-way stop signs, allowing the access as it is now to the people traveling up and down the steep streets, and stopping the people on the level streets, that is the High Street Expressway and the Oak Hill Expressway, if you know what I mean.
Well, again,
People use those streets to cross town, And they don't like to have to stop at the stop signs at all. But if they're all two-way stop signs, they'll think a little more about it before they just go. And I live overlooking the one at High Street in Maple. So all I have to do is sit there and count them on any given day.
Well, again, thank you, and
It would be good to have them all the same.
I see the person sitting next to you nodding, so he's on it.
So that would cost almost nothing because all you have to do is pull out 2 stop signs. Oh, and the one on High Street by the corner of the CI2, it's wired to the telephone pole. And I put a couple of spikes in it because it rusted off years ago and been laying down on the ground. So that's why it's up now. Ever since they built the last addition to the school, that sign has just been wired to the pole there. So,
Okay, well, thank you.
yeah, there you go. Sharpen that pole, drive it into the ground, 20 minutes.
Rudy, you had something else?
Yeah, I just want to ask, tomorrow night I know it should be a really good meeting, but only if the public is show up, all right? How do the public know about this meeting? I would like to know. I know that you put it on a site.
The same as the
Town
public
site.
knows about
Town
all the
site.
meetings.
There's a little step further with the grant. So one thing we've done is we posted that in the newspaper. Also, all abutters to the project have received direct notification through the mail. So
It's very important that the people will show up and stuff like that, but if they don't know about this meeting over here, you cannot have the same people show up all the time, the good old boys that tell you what's going on in town, okay? You need regular people, you need taxpayers that they are regular people, the one that they work at McDonald's, the one that they work at Burger King.
Do you have a suggestion?
No, I wish I have, you guys run the.
Oh, Rudy, every abutter to the projects got a notification, direct mail, and it's in the paper. What more do you want? Yeah, direct mail to everybody who abuts the project. He just told you. So, and then it's in the paper. What more would you expect to do?
in the website.
Maybe send a note.
Excuse me?
Maybe send a note
That's what they did.
to the taxpayer, to the people.
Well, they sent it to every abutter to the
It
project.
doesn't cost too much, it costs maybe 7 cents or 10 cents.
That's not gonna happen.
Okay. Doesn't gonna happen, doesn't gonna happen, that's it. That's the way you run the show, that's the way you run the show.
Anybody have any other public input? Brian?
It kind of coincides with what this gentleman was talking about in the TAP meeting. When the TAP plan was developed, there was outreach to the co-op, and the co-op, when they were in the process of construction, also wants to improve that intersection so that their customers can get there safely. They decided at that time, because of the TAP grant process, to hold off on doing some additional improvements to coordinate with the TAP plan. So it may be a good idea to reach out to them because they expressed an interest and they had allocated some resources which they have not expended. So this gentleman's concern is shared by them.
Did they get
Get a
a,
letter, but I'll call Ed King just to firm it up.
Yeah, they want their customers to get there very safely.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Anyone else have any public input? Jim?
Question on the, I had 2 people come up that had applied for board positions and had not heard anything back. Is there a notification that an application or a letter of interest is been received? Or is there anything that's sent back?
Well,
Saying
we
that
haven't,
we've received your
we
application
don't
or-
send a receipt for receiving an interest. We, at the end, when we've made our appointments, notify those that haven't been chosen. But it'd be premature to do so at this point in time because the door's still open for more.
Sure.
So we don't just send a receipt saying, yes, we got it. At the end, we say you've been appointed or you haven't.
Mr. Chairman, you got an obligation to answer or reply to the letter of interest. This is according to right to know laws. If it's somebody send us a letter.
What did I just say?
I'm gonna bring it to you, I don't know.
What did I just say?
No, you say that you are not obligated to send a letter to reply on a particular letter that, you know, anybody's interested to. Because you send to me, you send an email to me. Personally, you send an email to me.
I
But
sent
you are
an email
not
to you?
obligated, yes, I got a moment, no worry about it. You say that you are not obligated to answer my request to be on a committee, budgeting, planning, and stuff like that.
I know what he meant.
I'm gonna bring it to town tomorrow, but that's what you said.
Anybody else have any public input? I have some. I'm gonna read you something, and this is out of the employee handbook. And take it for what it's worth. The town of Littleton is committed to providing a work environment that is free from all forms of discrimination and conduct that can be considered harassing, coercive, or disruptive, including sexual harassment. All officials and employees shall be treated with courtesy and respect at all times. Conduct that threatens, intimidates, or coerces an official, an employee, or a member of the public at any time, including harassment conduct that is based on an individual's sex, race, age, or any characteristic protected by federal, state, or local law, will not be tolerated. We would appreciate it if the Board of Selectmen were treated the same way. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.